Can you say hard hats, folks? Hard hats, lunch pail, steel toe boots.
Anything short of a championship this year is a failure. Look at this boomer right here.
You've just got so much talent here.
Somebody said we need to apologize for Jaylen.
Can I call it John? What are we apologizing for? What did we say? What did we do?
Hey, Boy Manning here. Welcome to Celtics Lakers postgame from Summer League from Vegas. It's still early here, so thanks for everybody joining us from the East Coast because it's like 1 a.m. out there. I thought John was joining us, but it is late out east, Noah, so we'll handle this. Welcome in, everybody. And we're going to talk about Celtics Lakers in a little bit here, but obviously bigger news here, what we just talked about with Jaylen. We've been talking about it for about a week now, Noah, the whole situation about him getting snubbed from Team USA, and he was pretty happy to talk to us about it, and he didn't reveal everything, but what we learned tonight is he does think Nike played a role in him being snubbed from the team, and as I think we speculated, he did call White once people started talking about that whole thing, and made sure that they were good and congratulated them and all the rest there. So those were the two big things he talked about here today. How does that change or update how you're feeling about that whole situation?
Yeah, it was interesting. So I think the main takeaways from our conversation with Jaylen that kind of came right around halftime since he was here courtside was that he is definitely feeling motivated by the situation. He was happy to talk about it. I think he wanted to talk about it where he really didn't need to. And then the fact that, he called Derek White, I think we all knew that it was good to have that be confirmed because it was a big point of speculation about their relationship. He said, obviously, he knows I love him. Obviously, he knows, I'm really happy to have our guys there. I think people started having this feeling that, Jaylen wasn't happy that there were Celtics players on Team USA. And very clearly, he said today, I'm happy that we have a bunch of our guys out there. So I think it'll probably quell a lot of the, chatter around it. Doesn't change the fact that that was the discourse around the days that Derek White was first named to the team. It wasn't a completely celebratory thing. And I think the tweets did have some to do with that. But it doesn't sound like the kind of thing that he's doubling down on that's going to spill over into the next couple of weeks. I think tonight kind of wrapped that saga up, at least in my mind.
Yeah, and that's the benefit of talking and clearing the air, and I think he clearly wanted to do that. I did not think he was going to talk to us, nor did you. I don't think anyone here thought he was actually going to talk when we saw him come in, alongside Angel Reese and, take his courtside spot. I love that he talked. I love the answers. Now, again, he didn't go in depth on the Nike stuff, but given that his tweet was a little vague about his accusation of their involvement here, he did come out pretty definitively and accuse Nike of playing a role in this. And here's what he had to say about that.
What was that about? Do you think they had any role in you being left off?
I do for sure. There'll be more stuff to come with that. But as of now, I'm not gonna comment on it.
That was that on Nike. I don't know how much more we're actually going to hear from him about it, but that does make me think, Noah, because it's what I initially thought when he threw that out there. He must have heard something, and whether it was someone from Nike or someone that's connected in some way or just rumblings about what happened there, something made him go to Nike in that circumstance. I don't think it was just conspiracy in that moment. I've had issues with Nike in the past. They're involved with Team USA. They must have played a role here. I have to think he heard something, and I'm not expecting him to explain this more because I think with some of the other situations in the past with Jaylen, when you want to hear a little bit more about it, you don't end up hearing more about it. But it's interesting that he did tease maybe having some more details about why he thinks Nike was involved here.
Yeah, you're right. I think it's one of those things. Maybe in 10 years, he writes a book and then we find out all these things that we wanted to know over the years. But I think for now, that's all we're going to get. And the reality is that like the Team USA stuff, I kind of do get it. I get why players are frustrated. I feel like if they just had like a tryout and they had more transparency around the process, then there would be less qualms from players who are kept out, because we look at the roster and it's like, it almost feels like it's coming down to a handful of people. And it's not coming down to like Kyrie's talked about this, but like there's no way to actually compete on this the way that there used to be. And then obviously the Nike component, like it's no secret that they're super entrenched with Team USA, and it's no secret that Jaylen's had an adversarial relationship with Nike. And so, yeah, I think there's definitely truth to it. Whether that's the reason or whether they wanted a connector who might not play at all and won't care, who knows, what's the real reason. Like Derek also made a really compelling case. So I still think it kind of sucks that the whole snub thing came at the expense of Derek White. But he just wanted to make a point about Nike clearly. So that was that.
And here he was talking about his exchange with White after the announcement.
And what was the balance for you between sharing some of your frustrations with the process and also congratulating him in that moment?
Absolutely. I called Derek right away. I know, just to make sure there's no confusion, like my love for you and all of that, what I mean? So, like, he knew that and he did. And, but, you don't always got to make anything public, but me and D-Watt are good.
Yeah, so that was the gist of the Jaylen situation. I guess he also talked about getting together with Al Horford and some other teammates before long and getting back to Auerbach Center. So that process for next year is going to begin sooner rather than later, he mentioned. So square one for the team. The championship celebration is over, he mentioned as well, and some of the comments to us there. So there's motivation. He said he's fired up over the snub. He's expecting to use it as motivation for next year. And I did think that was also the case, that as much as this is about his problem with the process of these kind of selections and his status in the NBA and the Nike situation we just hit on, I also think there's a component of Jaylen needing these types of snubs or slights to fire him up to reach another level. And it makes sense because of the steady progression you've seen from him throughout his career here. So I'm with you, Noah. I'm glad he put the White thing to rest, because if that noise just kept stirring around them and there was no real, at least public resolution there, that was going to probably get frustrating for everybody involved into the camp. And now when you say that, I think it's all but over here, but we'll see.
Yeah, absolutely. And the other takeaway from our quick 4-minute scrum with him there is I think he's really fired up about running it back for next year. Tatum's made some comments we're celebrating the championship. I was with my extension and Joe Mazzulla was bringing up plays and I was like, Joe, we just won the championship. He sounded like he was like, I'm ready the championship's over. It's already up to next season. We're back to square one. Other teams are getting better. It doesn't surprise us based off of what we know about Jaylen and the way he responds to wins and losses and things like that. But he was really happy to answer those questions about running it back, and he sounds super motivated. And like you said, I do think that he really values and kind of feeds off of hate or feeling snubbed or feeling unappreciated. And certainly this is a justified feeling, but you could see he had that twinkle in his eye of being actually really excited about that opportunity to kind of come back and show them, even though we all know he already showed them. I mean, he won finals MVP, right?
Yep. So Jaylen courtside here in Vegas watching. I don't know if we'll see him again tonight, but he did leave in that second half. And we've seen Hauser here. Brad's been alongside. So it's a limited cast of Celtics. Obviously, the whole front office is here as well. But players still off celebrating. Players still enjoying their summer after that long run here. But it was good to see Jaylen, given that he's not in Abu Dhabi, supporting the Celtics here.
Well, I was thinking about it. I was thinking who else might show up, just be around Vegas. You got 3 guys in Abu Dhabi, and then you have 5 guys on the team, right? 5 players from the actual roster. So there's not a lot of players left over. So we saw 2 of them, but yeah, this is a kind of a weird setup where you have so many guys that were actually on the Celtics roster from last year that are actually playing Summer League, and then you have a few that are playing Olympics. So we can kind of account for most of them and why we're not going to see them in Vegas.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I think that's enough on Jaylen. We've talked about it a ton. Again, wasn't great at first, the situation there, but I think he handled it pretty well today and put a good resolution to it there. And you can get the full interview on CLNS Media. It's up there now. We're going to get into the game here as well, but I want to give a shout out to our sponsor that I used today, Noah. We're going to go to the Aces game tomorrow alongside Jack out here, and I use Game Time, and they are going to play Chicago. That's why Angel Reese was at the game here today, and it was a great process. Saw all the prices laid out in front of me. Best deal. They had a little star next to it, so I went right over there, grabbed them. I even found the same section Noah and Jack are sitting in, so I'm going to be pretty close to them. And I'm looking forward to it. I haven't been to an Aces game. I haven't been to a WNBA game since last summer, and that's all available on the Game Time app right now. Browse through. You can see MLB games, other high-profile events going on this summer, concerts, all kinds of stuff going on, and it's all available on Game Time. It's an authorized ticket marketplace of Major League Baseball, which makes getting tickets faster and easier. And prices on the Game Time app actually go down the closer it gets to first pitch with killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, view from your seat. That's my favorite part of the app. And their lowest price guarantee. Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets. So save up to 60% off buying last minute for sports, concerts, comedy, theater on Game Time. Go download it and take the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets. Download it, create an account, use the code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem with code CLNS for $20 off on the Game Time app. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. So on to the game tonight. Celtics Lakers, and not a ton of Bronny in this one. I know people in the chat are talking about Jaylen lip reading too, saying that I don't know if this guy's a pro. That's again what you're looking at here from his game. But on the Celtics side, you definitely saw a couple guys vying for minutes. We talked to Jordan Walsh again this morning, and he really didn't back down all that much about that goal he has for this year, about being part of the Celtics team. And I want to get to Cater as well, who was the story of this game. I thought his bounce back performance in this one even greater, and he has a better chance, at least with where the roster stands, and actually playing a role on this Celtics team this year. But Walsh wants to be in that rotation. Walsh wants to be in Boston. I don't think he's making any dispersion about that otherwise. And I obviously asked DJ the other day, Noah, about that and how they're feeling about it and the conversations they're having there, and he wouldn't rule it out completely. But he stressed that patience, and we've seen it, Noah. He's so eager, Walsh is. He's such a perfectionist out there, it looks like. When he makes mistakes, you see him get frustrated. There was even a moment early in this game, and he did it better in this game, but he thought he wasn't getting fouled. And then the whistle came in late, and he was just like, oh, good. But he had a better start in this game. Steals, a block early on Dalton Connect. He had that great defensive stand on him in the post, and Connect's a bigger, taller player. He was able to strip him and get out on the run there. So you saw it. Not a great shooting night. Didn't hit a three, but he was able to get involved in other ways, and he ends up plus 24, which is great.
Yeah, definitely. Jordan looked better. I still think, and I love that he said that today, of that, like the number one thing that I need to work on is being out of my own head, because it's so obvious. Like, I've watched him play so much, both in Maine and in Summer League, and it's like he literally misses 2 shots. We talked about it the other night. So I think he was better tonight. He's still not seeing like consistent offense or finding himself super comfortable offensively. But yeah, I think he looked better, and DJ McClay certainly sounded a lot happier with his performance post game. Like, he was like, he totally bounced back, locked in defensively. So I think hearing him talk about Jordan's performance, like, it almost kind of highlighted how much of a better showing that it was for him. But I think he's going to want to see the ball go through the net more, and he just hasn't had one of those games yet.
Yeah, definitely not. And it's tough without the shooting, right? And it doesn't seem like he's totally comfortable yet in that role that he'll probably play in Boston. The defensive discipline, I think, is going to be the biggest thing. You can't foul as much as he does at the NBA level, and I know he wants to stay aggressive. I know he wants to have his hands and arms in a lot of plays. He didn't foul tonight, which was great. So, again, the defensive performance came a long way in this one. But, Joe, he wants the spacing. He wants guys who would draw defenders out to the perimeter out there. And that's probably the biggest reason, beyond the youth and inexperience, that we didn't see him at all until the late stages of last year at the NBA level there. And I've said it before, Noah, I think the plan was 2 years in Maine for him from the start. And he's going to have to do something to change that, whether it's now, whether it's in training camp. I think the opportunity emerges from the fact that O'Shea's not on the roster still. Shvee's not on the roster still, so you're losing 2 wings there. You're probably going to be resting and easing guys like Jaylen and Jason into the season a little bit more than you were a year ago, given the schedule they're on, especially for a guy like Tatum who's playing in the Olympics. So there'll be spots, but you can go smaller with a Springer in those circumstances. Shireman so far has played better in this summer league, I'd say, through 2 games than Walsh has overall, and Shireman wasn't great tonight either. Peterson's in the mix. He went at 4 for 8 from 3 tonight. So that's the tough position Walsh is in. Yes, he's getting older. Yes, he's adding more experience here. But there's other guys joining the team, and there's still no clear path to minutes here in the near future. So that plays in Maine, right? So he can play, so he can make the mistakes, and they're not as consequential. And there's still the little stuff, obviously. Like I would have to imagine he has to still get stronger, even more than he did last year. And the shooting is everything there. So that's why DJ said right now it's about the steps. And I still think Walsh is in that process of focusing more on the steps rather than that ultimate goal.
Yeah, definitely. And shout out to Cobra Crease for the contribution. I'm currently down $70 for the week. I told myself I'd let myself lose $200 for Vegas. So maybe now I'm down $60. That's how I'm going to say it. So I have
Noah's putting the call out to replenish her account so she can keep playing whatever she's been playing out here.
I'm not putting the call out. I'm saying thank you.
Okay.
So yeah, no, much appreciated. But Bobby, to your point, I think that there's so many different players that are in the mix right now for like that last spot of maybe seeing the court a little bit like O'Shea did. To be, nobody here is really going to play substantial minutes next year. I think the most likely of the wing players between Baylor Shireman, Drew Peterson, and Jordan Walsh is Baylor. I do think that he looks the most ready to me from kind of an all-around standpoint, and obviously he hasn't had a great shooting game yet, and he's going to have one of those. But even last game, 3 for 7, started 0 for 3, bounced back a little bit, or quite a bit. And so I do think he looks the most NBA ready just across the board. Drew Peterson, he's funny. Like when his shot's on, he looks really good. Like tonight, he looked good, and game 1, I thought he was really struggling across the board. So he's one of those guys. I watched a lot of him in Maine last year. He looks like a different player every night. That's really very sharp contrasts. And then Jordan, I think he's still a year away. That's what it looks like out there. He's still going too fast. I don't know. I really like him so much. I really believe in him. I think that he has a lot of tools and a lot of things that he could get there. But what we're seeing right now from him in Summer League, I don't know that he's an NBA player right at this moment, and especially not on a team like the Celtics that doesn't really have a ton of room for like just go out there and play, right? Like that's not the role that anybody on this team is going to have. So Baylor to me seems the most likely of those 3 to actually be able to in the next year or 2 get some real minutes and actually contribute. And again, like on one hand we're sitting there being like, oh, Jordan's this is his second rodeo, he's a second-year player. But the other hand, Baylor is someone that's like 3 years older than him, right? So he has that advantage. You can see it out there. He looks more poised. He looks like he's more of a veteran player. But I do think Keita looked a lot better tonight than he did the other night, and I'm optimistic that he's going to be able to help chip in, and especially in the early parts of the season when we know Porzingis is going to be out, and he sounded just so happy to be locked in for the next few years.
Yeah, here is Nemesh Keita talking about back to Boston here, and he was awesome tonight right from the jump. 2.5 minutes, 7 points on the board. Like I said, I want him to go from 60% shooting to 70% shooting, Noah, and he did exactly that in this one, along with getting to the line and some rim protecting moments early in this one. Great night for Keita, who you want to see look above the competition here, and he finally did. Here's him talking about his new 3-year contract with the Celtics.
Season like for you, you went into free agency, signed back pretty quickly. What was that process like?
It was pretty good. Like whenever they didn't pick up the option, we kind of figured out that it was probably the best idea to come back. Both sides are happy with the work that we put in this year, and I was just glad that they wanted me here for the long run. It was pretty easy to pick up the. It was pretty easy to settle down on the contract, and all that was easy.
Were you and the team hoping to
Yeah, so
You know
there
what
was
else
Nimi.
Sorry. You know what else was interesting to me, Bobby, from postgame was the Celtics Summer League head coach DJ McClay said that they're really using Summer League. One of like the key objectives is helping Nimi get more acclimated to the different defensive schemes. And you kind of forget that the point of Summer League isn't to win, and it's not to have guys have good box scores, but it's to actually work on like very tangible things that are going to be helpful for the Celtics in a lot of ways. They're going to say that it's for winning, but at like the end of the day, they're working on individual developmental things, right? And so something for us to all kind of keep our eye out for is that they're practicing different schemes specifically for Nimi because that's something that he struggled with last year as far as switching and being versatile and kind of knowing the system. And so pretty cool to see that that's a use case for him as a 25-year-old in Summer League, that he's actually kind of running through things that he can hopefully be ready to go in Boston.
That's where I get stuck. And here come the comments again. He's coming for Luke's job. He's going to replace him. And I don't like doing it, Noah, because I love Keita. I thought he was a steal of a signing. He's developing. He's going in a great direction, and he's got plenty of time here to acclimate and earn that role. But I just don't know what people are watching when they're saying he's better than Luke. You hear DJ post-game, and we're going to have that full interview up on CLNS Media here. The defensive acclimation to what the Celtics are going to have to do out there eventually needs to happen for him to be able to get into that role. I asked him how much he's going to be able to fill in for Porzingis, and like you heard him say, it's defense. And Luke, man, he's a master of that drop scheme. He's so good at it. He fills so much space in there. He covers ground in the pick and roll. And then offensively, you're getting all this passing. You're getting the great vision, the free throw shooting too. It looks like Keita's got a decent free throw approach out there, but that's another layer to it. And the one thing you give Keita is the rebounding. There's great physicality and hands on the boards, which we talked about the other night here, Noah. So I think that's why people look at him and view him as refreshing, because sometimes Luke's kind of batting the ball around and has a tough time hauling it in. So I'll give him that one. But Luke came a long way on the offensive glass last year too. So I like what I like what Nimi's doing. I like the trajectory he's on, but I don't know how you can watch Luke fill backup center minutes all year, double big minutes next to Al, playoff minutes through the first 2 rounds. He put up a near double against Cleveland. And we're talking about a two-way guy last year who's now on a standard contract, who has mostly played in the G League for his career so far. Again, I really don't want to slight Keita. I don't want to make this Keita versus Luke, because I think there'll probably be matchups where Keita can fill in better than Luke. But on an average night, this is still Luke's job.
Yeah, I don't want to do the whole, like you said, I don't want to do the whole Luke versus Keita thing, because I feel like we've done it so many times. And Luke is obviously the guy that's ahead in the rotation right now. There was a small stint when he was coming back from injury where I think Keita was kind of ahead of him. But the main thing I'll say is that Luke is 29 and Keita is 25 and hasn't really played substantial NBA minutes. Like, this was his first year doing so. So I think the thing with him is less about where he is now. Right now, Luke Cornett knows the system. He's much more reliable in the different coverages that they run. There's a reason why Joe Mazzulla trusted him at critical moments during the year. The question is, in 4 years, can Keita be that and some? Because he has some of the tools that Luke doesn't have. I think that's why they're investing in him. Not to mention the fact that, you want to have multiple guys, because next thing you know, Luke goes down with injury, Nimi goes down with injury, whatever. Hopefully they're both okay, but there's things that happen throughout the year. So I think it's less about who gets that spot and more about having insurance for one another, for Al, for Porzingis. So I think there's a role for both of them to play. And I think they each have their advantages. I also do think, I know you get a lot of flack for Luke Cornett, Bobby. I think that a lot of people, they just don't like how he looks when he plays basketball. That he looks a little awkward. He looks a little clunky, and they're not actually watching like what he's doing.
It's all optics.
So I do, I have to put that out there, because I feel like you're constantly getting hated on this. I do think that if people could just watch the impact, or if you could replace him with somebody that looks different, that moves a little differently, but is doing everything else, he would get a lot less criticism. So just putting that out.
And if Luke was out here, I think people would be shocked by how much he would dominate with his approach to the game.
You think he dominated Summer League?
Oh, absolutely. I think at this point, with how much he can manipulate the game, and again, it might not all be stats. I think that's the other thing here too. He's not a stats guy. It's decision making, it's positioning a lot of the time. Like Luke's a guy you have to really watch closely. You really do, because it's not going to all show up on the stat sheet at the end of the game. But he's not here. We're talking about the guys that were here. We also got another update, or I guess maybe it's the first update we've gotten about Kristaps Porzingis since the surgery here, because Kate is going to be in this mix of guys. We didn't even mention Tillman, who is the most switchable of all these guys. It's great that they have the whole cast back here between Horford, Tillman, Cornette, and Keita, because I think all of them bring a little bit of a different approach to that center position with Porzingis out there. But here in DJ McClay's terms is how Kristaps Porzingis is doing.
How much can you see him being part of the mix that helps fill in for Kristaps early in the year?
I mean, I think first and foremost, credit to him. He wanted to play Summer League, so it's a real credit to him. I think the big challenge for him this summer has been some of our defensive stuff. So I don't know if you guys are watching, but we're changing a lot on the defensive end, and a lot of that is centered around trying to help him get integrated with what we do at the NBA level. So that's just kind of where we are right now, and he's doing a good job. So yeah.
That was on Keita. He also said later, last time he talked to Kristaps, he's chilling on a beach. So at least mentally, at least spiritually, he's in a good place out there. Physically, we'll see in time. But as we know, Kristaps is probably going to miss till Thanksgiving, Christmas to start this year. So it's important that Keita shows he can survive, because would they get like 7-8 games from him last year that he actually had to play a significant role, maybe a little bit more than that even. He had quite a few where he played some major minutes with Kristaps, Luke out, multiple bigs down, rest nights for Horford. So that's the thing, right? Now, maybe not on an average night you're going to Keita a ton or at all, but let's say Al's off on one of those back-to-backs and Luke's hurt. All of a sudden it's Tillman and Keita, and you're asking for either 30 from Tillman and 15 from Keita, or more of a 25-25 kind of split there. And so that's going to happen. They're going to play about half the season without Porzingis here. Other guys are going to get bumped and bruised. Other guys are going to need rest here. So when you look at the Summer League roster, Keita by far is the most consequential in terms of who's actually going to impact the Celtics this year.
Yeah, definitely. And I do think I see a question here about Jaden Springer not playing. We asked him about it we asked DJ McClay about it after the game, and he said that he had a good game. He's with the team for the next few days. I asked him if he's hurt. He said, I don't think so. So it was kind of a weird answer, but I think he should be fine. Maybe he's dealing with a little lingering something, but I don't think he's one of the guys that they want to see like a whole lot of in Summer League. Like there's other guys that this is more for than him. He's already been like a G League Finals MVP. I don't know. Maybe he'll come back. Maybe he twisted his ankle or something. But we didn't get like real clarity, I thought, from post game.
What I got on it is I think he's done, and it's nothing serious. Okay. So again, no definitive word on what the ailment is. If it's anything, maybe it's a small thing that they're just taking him out precautionary for. DJ also said he's just here for a couple more days, so I think that adds to what I'm hearing, which is I think he's done for the rest of the Summer League here. So I don't think we'll see Springer again, and that's a little disappointing because he was so awesome in game one.
Yeah, he was great. Yeah, and he's one of the ones I would say, like him and Nimi both seem to me right now the most NBA ready at this moment to be able to. And
contractually, they're the most secure, right? Walsh is on that last year of his guaranteed rookie deal, but Keita is pretty firmly in that center mix. Springer is here for $4 million for this year, so those guys don't really have to prove themselves from a roster perspective. JD, he's on a 2-way deal. That's not a lock. Yeah, they can give that to someone else. And Ramsey had some real moments again in this one tonight. You look at guys like that and you're like, all right, who's in the mix for a 2-way here if they stand out big time and keep it rolling? You look at Drew Peterson, who we talked to here today as well. He's probably got to defend his spot a little bit, and I think he's doing a good job so far, playing inside and out, hitting shots tonight. That's what he really needs to do, because I think that's why they brought him here. Try to tap into some shooting upside there. You have to think Watson's going to be on one of those 2-way deals, and everyone forgets about him. But Jay Scrub, right? He's gonna recover from that ACL tear at some point here, and I know he was recovering around the team a little bit. over the course of the last year, staying in the facility, but he was signed to a two-way deal at this time last year. And then he goes into training camp, was showing some signs of being a off-the-dribble scorer and kind of a microwave guy, and he tears his ACL. So he's still recovering right now. Obviously can't play on this summer league team, but when we're talking about two ways right now, obviously JD and Drew are on one. For my baseball fans, I would love throwing those names together in that order. You got Ramsey here, who's looking pretty good so far. A lot of turnovers early in that first half, but he can score for sure. Maybe Scrubs back in the mix at some point. And, they brought in Harper on the Exhibit 10 right now, so he's going to be at camp. Am I forgetting anyone, Noah? Watson? So we're talking about like maybe 5-6 guys in two-way range.
No, yeah, you hit the guys. I do think JD Davison, like we might be watching and thinking, oh, there's Jemias Ramsey. He had a really nice drive. It's him and JD in competition here. I think JD is pretty secure as the guy that they've invested in for the last 2 years now.
And Brad said he wants him here.
Brad wants him here. He wants to be here. The question for me is this going to be 3 straight years of being on a two-way that spent 95% of the year in Maine? Because he was on a two-way this year, but he was in Maine all year, right? He wasn't coming back and forth playing Boston minutes. So the question, most likely that'll be the case again, unless somebody goes down, which, you hope isn't the case, but you never know. We kind of take people's health for granted sometimes. Pritchard didn't miss one game this year. That certainly didn't help JD's case for getting any real NBA experience. But I think he's a guy that they really like, and he's a guy that's done everything they've asked of him. He looks a lot better than he looked last Summer League. He did a really good job running that team in Maine, really led them to the G League championships, and was their best player every single night. He was the guy that kind of kept everything going, and he's a floor leader. He's grown to be more vocal. Like, I think he's done the things that they've asked of him. If he can consistently shoot, that was always kind of the knock on him, that he's not a three-point shooter, and being undersized like that, you have to be. So I really hope he makes it. I hope that if it's not in Boston, it's somewhere, because he just seems like the kind of player that's done everything that he needs to do to make it in the league. But this is his last year on a two-way, right? He only gets 3 years of eligibility. So I think he's ahead of everybody else on the totem pole as far as, if there's going to be a random guy from Summer League here, I don't think they're going to oust JD Davison, who they've invested so much into from a developmental standpoint. But I'm sure he would love to get a guaranteed deal somewhere where he can get real minutes. And I don't know if Boston's going to be that spot now or in the future. So he's a tough one. It's really tough to kind of know what to do with him and what's going to happen.
And that happens. Teams usually start guys' development in that range, especially, and then they go on to play or succeed elsewhere. And sometimes it's that first team that sets the stage, and then the second team provides the opportunity. So that seems more than likely in Davison's case, at least for right now. But the big factor in him staying here clearly is that he's patient, and there's no rush to get NBA minutes opportunity. When we talked to him a couple of days ago, it didn't even sound like he was looking elsewhere. He just wanted to come back. So good approach from him so far, taking it play by play, making good decisions. He gets in that lane and just fires it out to an open shooter. And he's got pretty good vision out there, especially at his size. But you're looking for some shooting. You're looking for a defensive leap. And those are going to be the two things he needs to do to be able to get out on the NBA floor eventually. And those 4 guys in front of him are just, even in Springer's case, still so far ahead of him in that regard. But he's so young. So there's NBA upside there for sure with him, especially athletically. Sometimes I feel like we don't even see the ceiling for him athletically out there in terms of how many risks he takes or how hard he attacks the basket. But there's something there. He's played well so far, so credit to him. And that's not a guy they're going to need this year or rely on maybe at all. But it's good that he's going to bring some connective passing ability to a main team that, along with Watson up there and whoever else is going to be in the mix for minutes, maybe Kate, if they're fully healthy, goes back up there for different stints. It's good to have all those different pieces from a developmental standpoint to make it a complete team. As you know, Noah, that was a pretty complete main team last year and even the year before that. You got your point guard, you got your shooters on the wing, you got your center, and that helps everybody involved. But that point guard component's a big piece to have in that dynamic. We'll do this real quick. John loves it. I don't have a whole lot of interest in this. What'd you think? First time watching him up close, Bronny James.
He didn't look great, honestly. The one thing I'll say is the first couple of possessions he picked up JD defensively, and he does look like he has the potential of being a good defender. Like I get it. I heard JJ Redick said today that he views him as a potential Lou Dort. I don't know if I see a Lou Dort, but I do get the defense. Jaylen Brown was definitely saying that on the bench. Someone caught him. I think NBC caught him saying it, turning to who I think is his girlfriend and saying, Bronny doesn't look like a pro. He doesn't right now. The question is, can he get there? I mean, I think we're having similar discussions around like Jordan Walsh, not to put them in the same category, but like there's a lot of players on the floor tonight that didn't look like NBA players. So I don't know. He didn't look great. I see the comments. I know I always try to make things sound better, but he didn't look great. But I also think that there's so much scrutiny on him right now. And there have been so many players that haven't looked good in Summer League and they're just not getting the same scrutiny. So that's the only other thing I'll say is that if you look at all the top 60 guys that were drafted and you go down the line, like there have been other guys that have been underplaying their spot, that they're their draft pick more than Bronny has. So that being said, yeah, there was not much to show for it.
I didn't even notice him out there. And part of it, as I've talked about, is the stature. He is not tall by NBA standards. And that's what you notice, especially out here. And he got up on that transition play early and was able to deflect it out of bounds. That was a good play. But he had to get up there to do that. And there's not a ton of length there. There's not a ton of height there. And if you're going to be a defensive guy, that's a challenge. And then you add in the offensive limitations. The shooting's non-existent. And that was something he was going to have to rely on in college. And it didn't go well in year one. He's young. He's coming off the heart incident. And he's stepping into shark-infested water here in terms of like the skill set of everybody around him. And that's the risk he took in making this leap. And as JJ said, or I think it was who was saying he doesn't care, he doesn't give an F. Was it JJ?
LeBron said that. No, LeBron said that.
Oh,
LeBron was
LeBron.
Like, when I came into the league, I actually cared what you guys all had to say. But like Bronny's different. He's not like me. He doesn't care.
Yeah, so that's good. And this place went crazy when he hit the shot. I didn't see him react to that either, which is important. He can't react to the struggles, and he's gonna have a ton. And he can't react to the moments where the crowd's almost going to treat him like Taco, back in the day when the crowd would go crazy over anything he would do, especially in this environment. There's always been a big Lakers crowd out here at Summer League. So I'm wishing him the best. I don't think there's any reason to hate on him. I don't think there's any reason to wish for his downfall. Obviously, he got to this level in position in large part because of his dad. Whether you like that or not, it's going to decide a lot about how you feel about him. Certainly, talking to some people around here, even going back to his high school days, people do hold that against him competitively. And that's going to put a little bit of a target on his back for the guys here who are trying to make it, who feel like he has a guaranteed roster spot because of his dad and he doesn't deserve it. And you have many, many guys here trying to fight for spots like that. So I don't think that's going to help him a ton in terms of these competitive environments because Noah, not every G League team's like me. Sometimes guys on the same team are going for the same exact spots and you're just trying to showcase your talents. And sometimes it might not be a whole complementary system around you. And I don't know what South Bay is going to look like this year, but it is going to be a serious uphill battle for him to actually make the NBA. And credit to LeBron for putting him in a good starting point here. But is it actually going to be helpful to start this fast, this early, and have that target on your back? I don't know. Again, I'm rooting for him. I don't have any ill will toward him. But from the start, I feel like a lot of this was pretty ill-conceived in terms of how it's talked about. Being out here, Noah, they're marketing this thing around him, this whole Summer League. That feels a little contrived. And before long, he's just going to be living the G League lifestyle and trying to make it in a whole very competitive environment where everybody's fighting for that next level. So we'll see how it goes. It's going to take a while. I don't think we'll see him in the NBA in the next year or two at the very least. So we'll see how it goes. I didn't see much from him here tonight, though.
Yeah, and here's the thing. Like, the marketing stuff, it's tough because on one hand, obviously, he's not one of the prospects from this draft class. There's literally 59 other players that they should be talking about over him. but he's the guy that everybody knows in a class of draft picks that nobody really knows. And so it becomes this like self-fulfilling prophecy. And I cover the WNBA, and it's the same deal with the WNBA. It's like everybody only knows a couple names at the beginning. And so then they keep shoving those same names over and over again, and you're missing out on a lot of great players that are not being discussed. And I think that's what's happening with this summer league. Like I've seen a lot of Reed Shepherd over the last few days. Granted, I haven't watched a lot of TV since I'm here. But I'm seeing a lot more Bronny discourse and a lot of the like positive developments, and guys like Alex Sarr who haven't had a great summer league either. But like he's the number 2 pick, and he's not getting a lot of the ridicule because Bronny's getting it. So I think we all should probably talk about him a little bit less. I get that we have to touch base on it because it is a big part of the story here, right? Like the cheer that he got for hitting that shot, I thought you would have thought it was a game winner, and he had 2 points, and it was the third quarter, right? So yeah, I don't think he has an NBA future right now. The one thing I will say is that covering Jordan Walsh in Maine last year, one of the things that the Maine Celtics head coach Blaine Miller said to me a bunch of times is that it's so hard to be Jordan because everybody knows you're the guaranteed player. You're the guy that's actually on a roster, and none of us here are. We're all not even two-ways for the most part. And it's 24-year-olds that have been trying for years to find a roster spot, and then they see a 19-year-old kid come into the G League with an $8 million contract. That was Jordan's position last year. And it doesn't set you up for success because you have a bullet, a target on your back, and everybody's kind of trying to show you that they're better than you. Bronny's going to have that times 50. So he's going to have a hard time in the G League. The G League's no joke. There's so much talent. Like we're seeing right now in Summer League, there's so many good players out there, and guys that have been doing this for years now, and they're only getting better and better and better. So it's going to be tough for him. Just because people think like, oh, G League, like he'll just put up 20. Like that's not going to be the case, I don't think. I think he's going to have a hard time there too because other players are going to come and see, oh, I'm playing Bronny James. Like there's a lot more tension on my game. There's a lot more tension. People here, TV maybe. So let me go out against him. And obviously JD today outplayed him, and he's a better player by a lot right now.
Yeah, and that's all I got to say on it. I don't think there's too much more to say right now. We'll keep tabs on him, and it was cool to see him here. Definitely want to get a look at him, but not too much out of Bronny James in this one. Real quick, we both watched USA this morning. They won. It was sloppy. Turnover is a big issue for this team right now. Holiday, Tatum doing their best to address them. Though Tatum had a couple in this game as well. Holiday had one. But right now, my overarching thought on at least the Celtics angle in this, and Derek White did not play today. We'll see if he plays at all in this setting. But Tatum starts, passes a ton, only takes 1 3. So it feels like the perimeter game is not going to be part of his arsenal in this summer showcase out in Paris, which is interesting because he didn't shoot great in the playoffs. And I know it probably makes more sense for him on this team to take a more interior approach and passing approach. And the passing has been great. Some real dazzling stuff from him with the ball in his hands in terms of finding teammates and just keeping the flow going. I think it kind of builds on what we saw from him in the playoffs. Holiday's fit is pretty seamless here. He keeps coming into these games and just making things happen. And hitting shots too in his case, which is important. So that's like a pretty good decision to have him be a major part of this team. But turnovers are flying everywhere. They lost a big lead in this game. It went from 24-4 from the middle of the third to the late stages of the fourth. And Australia is a good team, but not among the best that they're going to see out there. I would throw France in there. Serbia, they're going to play on Wednesday. Is going to be interesting. And couple others in that mix at the top there. Canada will have their say as well when they get rolling. So I don't have a ton of thoughts from this one, but those are mine. Did anything else stand out to you about this one?
No, I think it's hard. It's hard. They definitely look a little sloppy out there. There's so much talent on this team that you have to think they're going to figure this out. There's so many winners on this team. I think for me, one of the things that stood out, and I watched like the first 3 quarters. I missed a little bit of when things went awry. But Tatum had such a perfect training ground for being on this Olympic team. Like I tweeted this out earlier, but the Celtics were kind of like, there are no players in the league that had as much talent on their roster as the Celtics, right? And so Tatum, Brown, and Derek White all go into the Olympics with a national advantage of like, they're actually used to playing with so much talent around them. Whereas like Steph Curry spent all year with guys that were struggling, having to really carry the offense. So it's like more of an adjustment for someone like him to now come to the Olympic team and have to switch and realize that there's so many other threats out there for him that he doesn't need to kind of force the issue or anything like that. And so I thought early on, Tatum looked like a connector. He had 3 assists before he even attempted a shot. And it's the Jason Tatum that we saw a lot of times during the playoffs when he had guys to kick it out to. And, I thought that he looked like a great fit out there. I see why he's on the Olympic team, obviously. And then Drew Holiday, just defensively, what he's able to do when he has Anthony Davis, Bam, anchoring him, pretty fun to watch. And obviously he's been on a heater really a year from 3, so that seems to have continued in the early days here of the Olympic team. And those 2 guys are going to be probably 2 of the most critical, top 8 most critical players on this Olympic team. And then who's to say? I don't know if Derek didn't play because he's still getting his feet wet. He's still getting into shape and everything. I'm sure we'll see a little bit of him in the exhibition. I talked to his dad late last week, and he said that right away when they offered him the spot, they sent him like all the schemes, all the things that he's going to have to learn, what exactly his role is going to be. So I'm sure behind the scenes, he's really getting acclimated.
Davis, 17, 14, best player out there. I'll mention that. Pretty dominant stuff from him. Everyone else just trying to find their way. I thought LeBron even looked a little sloppy today out there on the floor. So it was an offensive mess in many ways. But Tatum, 3 or 4, 7 points, couple dunks, 5 assists, 2 turnovers. He did his job for sure. And Holiday ends with 5 and 4 with a steal, 1 turnover, 2 of 5 shooting in his case, splitting a pair of threes. Or 1 for 3 from 3 in Holiday's case there. So they're looking good. I'm keeping an eye on that Tatum shot, though. It's not there right now, and he's mostly playing around the rim, which I like. But you do wonder where that is at going into next year after it was so inconsistent going into the playoffs. Everyone has their look at what his release and shot looks like right now. I know people in the chat are talking about that. I'm not a shot doctor. I don't have a great feel for what his shot looks like mechanically. I don't know if you have any thoughts on that, Noah.
I mean, I noticed it when I look at old Summer League highlights, like those have been resurfacing. Like, okay, that shot looks completely different. But as far as like what exactly has gone wrong for him as of late, I still think it's more mental than anything mechanical. Like, he's working with shooting coaches. He has the best shooting coaches in the world. If there's a fundamental problem where he has a dip or he's shooting from a certain angle or whatever, like that will be fixed. But if he's thinking about it constantly, and obviously he is at this point, like how could you not? You've been struggling from 3 for as many months as he has. Like, until he can get out of it mentally, it's going to continue to be a struggle. And I do think he's going to get out of it mentally sooner rather than later. I wouldn't be surprised if he starts next season shooting really well. And I don't know how he's been doing shooting wise because we've seen so few threes for him in the Olympic team. Maybe he's been shooting really well in practice, but I always think it's way more mental than mechanical 95% of the time, especially when you're at, with the resources that these players have and all the scrutiny in the film and everything. If it's a mechanical thing, usually it gets fixed pretty quickly.
Yeah, that's where I'm looking because the mental thing or hot and cold shooting, that works out. And usually a guy would get hot at some point, given the stretch we've watched from him. And you're right, 1 shot so far, so you can't take anything from this. I don't think it's the weightlifting. I don't think it's anything physically in that sense, unless there's an injury we don't know about, but I don't think there is. So I have to look at mechanics, and I don't know enough about that to comment. So we'll get more information on that. We'll continue to watch what he looks like, but the shooting's in a weird place for Jason Tatum right now. There's no doubt. So they were going to play again on Wednesday. Serbia up next for the Celtics, Team USA. Jokic, that's a big opponent. Big matchup. Yeah, a quarter of the Celtics, or the quarter of the team is the Celtics. I want to give a shout out to our merch right now. You see I'm wearing the phenomenal hat, and I have been all week, so I'm doing my part to sell hats. We got shirts. We got the full top 6 on a shirt. That's a fun one. And of course the hard hats. Jimmy is enjoying his summer right now. We're going to be out in Paris. Maybe he'll bring me a hard hat to wear. But you can get yours right now over on the CLNS store, which I believe is clns.com/shop. I want to say off the top of my head, that's what the URL is there. Amit can correct me if I'm wrong, but you can go over there and purchase some stuff. Thanks to everyone who watched tonight. Thanks to Game Time. Go over there and get $20 off your first purchase with code CLNS, like I did today, to go into the Aces game tomorrow. So looking forward to that. Celtics going to practice tomorrow, so we'll hear from them again. And we'll have all post-game sound on CLNS Media as well momentarily here from Vegas. Thanks to everybody for staying up. Not too late here in Vegas. I'm feeling pretty good. My voice is going a little bit.
I feel like it's
and I can't
2
keep up.
a.m.
I can't keep up with the water. I'm going to have to stop walking around in the sun, which is what's killing me. So we're off. Celtics win. Jaylen Brown talk tonight. You can go see that on CLNS Media as well. And again, read Noah Dalzell over on CelticsBlog.com, and plenty more from both of us here for CLNS Media in Las Vegas. Celtics Hornets is next out here on Wednesday. I will be here for that. I think Noah is too. I think you're slated to be here for
till
the
the
whole
end of
run.
Summer League. So if you guys don't get sick of Summer League coverage, because I'll still be here sharing stuff.
I'll be here for Wednesday's game. I'll leave the Mavs to you in that finale. And it looks like Jaden Springer's done, which is what I've heard here. So he did not play tonight. Don't think there's a major injury concern there, if there is one at all. We didn't get a definitive answer from that from DJ McClay. So sounds like he's done for the stretch run here. We'll continue to watch Jordan Walsh and all the rest. And if there's any update tomorrow, we'll have that as well. But that's it. Celtics win. CLNS Media, Celtics All Access. This has been the Garden Report for Noah Dalzell. I'm Bobby Manning. Good night.